My name is Sarah Lowe, and I'm super excited to be here today to talk to you about probably my favorite subject ever, which is generally mustangs, using protected contact and positive reinforcement. I'm hoping that when you see these videos and these photos that I'm going to show you, that you feel inspired to do similar stuff, because I don't have special facilities. I'm doing this at a horse boarding facility. It's not even my own. I just sort of worked with what I had, and I think other people can too. And I hope you learned something about mustangs and want to get involved. All right, so a little background about myself. I am a veterinarian, but before I became a vet, I did a lot of different things. One of the things that I did was trap feral horses on the Big Island of Hawaii for a period of time. That experience really has carried forward and informed everything that I've done since, including becoming a veterinarian. Back then, this was in 2006, back then I didn't know anything about protected contact. I knew just a tiny bit about positive reinforcement, and I'm always reflecting on this experience and sort of thinking about how I could have done things better and building on that. So this is a bit of a personal journey as well. So for those of you that are not familiar with the Bureau of Land Management Wild Horse and Burro program, I'm just going to go over a few key facts. So there's about 82,000 of these horses free living on federally managed lands in the American West. It's millions of acres in many different states. But there's also about 50,000 of these horses in holding facilities managed by the Bureau of Land Management as well. Those horses are distributed over a greater number of states. They get trucked around to different states to adoptions. There's about 2 adoptions a year in the state of Virginia, one in Lorton, Virginia, and the other one's in Lexington, Virginia. If you want to go and check them out, I encourage you to go and see for yourself. These are public events. You can go look. So back in 1971, when the Protection Act was passed, the government decided that the ideal number to be free living was 27,000. You can see we're at 82. That's way over what there should be. And now, plus, the Bureau of Land Management has been removing horses to try to meet their population goals, removing them from the wild and putting them in these facilities. And now we've got 50,000 of them, but we still have way too many on range. It costs about $50,000 over the lifetime of the animal to take care of it and feed it and do all the things that need to be done with it. So that's a lot of money that we as taxpayers are spending on caring for these horses. So the Bureau of Land Management is now spending most of their budget taking care of these horses in these holding facilities, so they don't have a lot left over to address the problem on range, so it's just kind of snowballing out of proportion. The Bureau of Land Management tries to get private individuals to adopt them. They have better chances of adoption if they are trained. And they've just come out with new adoption incentives, so you can get paid up to $1,000 per horse if you adopt a Mustang. No, the normal adoption fee was $125 per horse. You can get a sales eligible horse, which is either 10 years of age or older, or it's been to at least 3 adoptions and not been adoptions. You can get one of those and you purchase it outright. It's not an adoption, for $25. I purchased my Mustangs for $25 each in Lexington, Virginia. And I encourage you to go to their website, check it out. It can be kind of confusing, but there's a lot of awesome information on there, including a ton of B-roll footage of just camera footage of them doing various things with them, including releasing them out of trailers back onto the range and things like that. So a lot of people assume that if they go to one of these adoptions, they're getting an animal that's never been handled before, that's and that's just not true. You know, these horses, these are all photos that I took going around to different adoptions. These are public events, anyone can go. This is a holding facility in Ewing, Illinois, where most of the horses that come to the eastern states, they come through Ewing, Illinois to be sorted and processed. And it looks a lot like a cattle feedlot. This is in California at an adoption, and this is in Lorton, Virginia at an adoption. So these animals, you know, they have to have health certificates, they have to have their blood drawn for a Coggins test, they have to have their feet done, they are branded, they have vaccinations, and then ultimately at an adoption they're being sorted, put into a halter box, and then loaded onto a trailer. Adopters can opt not to have a halter placed on the horse if they want to. They can also opt not to have the neck tag that they're all wearing removed. This is a horse being haltered and having its neck tag removed. That's actually a still from a video that is right after the neck tag was cut off. And it's in that box. It's going to end up on the trailer. And I just want to point this out. You've got horses kind of running or moving quickly off the trailer, offloading. So if you're going to get one of these horses and work with one of these horses, you kind of have to approach it like you're rehabilitating them to some extent, because the style of handling in these facilities is a lot of pressure without release. There's a lot of flag usage, and I sat there and counted how many times the flags struck the animals, and you know, they get hit a lot with these flags and hats and hands and various other things. Anyway, so you have to keep that in mind if you're going to get one of these animals. But the really awesome thing is in terms of protected contact, they're already sort of being set up for this. So sometimes the handlers are in the pen with them, sorting them, using their flag. But when they add an adoption, they get fed hay along the inside of these, and again, these are all in Virginia, Lorton, Virginia adoption. They get fed hay along the inside of the perimeter pen, and then they've got spectators walking up and down, and that's my daughter petting one of them, you know, and they're used to approaching to that food and being at least observed, and some of them will allow people to pet them. I saw more kids being successful doing that. And so one of the things that I do is when I'm first working with them, I crouch down. So I thought that was pretty neat. Like, you can use that as the starting of getting them to approach you, rather than getting in the pen with them, because they're used to once somebody's in the pen, they're being moved away. They're being sent on, usually faster than a walk. Okay, so my personal goals, like I said, this is a personal journey for me as well. My personal goals is I really wanted to share with people. That's why I got the camera going. I wanted to document this as much as possible and get some of this information out there, show people what could be done. I wanted to show that I could be safe with these horses and not have to have a bunch of expensive equipment, etc. And then I really wanted to promote non-confrontational horse handling that I learned from Sue McDonald at UPenn, and use Mustangs to showcase this. And ultimately I want to make nice, safe horses, because you know, I don't know if I'll keep them forever. I want wherever they go out into the world, you know, them to be nice and be treated nice as a result. And I also just think training horses is really fun. So this is me and one of the horses. Her name's Red. So anyway, I chose to use protected contact and positive reinforcement. A big reason for that was the safety aspect. I can't afford to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. I've been hurt by horses before, and I'm not interested in that happening to me. I think it's safer for me, obviously, because I've got a physical barrier there, but it's also safer for the horses. I know from my experience in Hawaii that the most accidents that would happen where the animals would get hurt was when they were scared because we were pushing too hard, we were inside. You know, when you're inside the pen with them, you tend to use more negative reinforcement, and you get them, you know, in an avoidance response, which can escalate to running through fences, running into water troughs, trying to jump the fence, running into each other. And I wanted to avoid all of that. I also decided that I think it's a lot more efficient if we start with protected contact to train them to come to you. That way when you're actually graduating to be in the pen with them, they're used to that approach. Previously when I had done natural horsemanship style training with horses in a round pen, you're actually starting by chasing them away from you and then turning that into shaping them to come towards you. So it seems rather counterproductive to me. In addition, I have a job that I have to go to. I have to other commitments. This is my daughter demonstrating protected contact with the Mustangs. But I have a lot of stuff going on, and this seemed the easiest way to do this by myself with little resources. And then we know from zoo animal studies and all the information out there that these kinds of training regimes just result in ultimately better welfare for the animals. This is just really basic protected contact, me and my daughter. And then actually one other thing that I want to point out too is that I've learned from Sue McDonald that ignoring bad behavior, or unwanted behavior I should say, ignoring that is the most efficient way to make that behavior go away. It's really hard to do that when you're in the pen with the animal and you're trying to protect yourself. And you end up inadvertently, you might end up, striking the animal something just because you're scared. So we can remove that motivation from the trainer. Okay. Real quick, just so you understand what you're seeing, my facilities is a boarding facility. I don't own this place. I had to sweet talk the owner into letting me do this. The Bureau of Land Management requires for you to get a horse that's older than a yearling and ungentled. You have to have 6 foot tall fences. I measured it. These are 6 feet. This back fence line is only 5 feet tall. So I had to get yearlings. So I went to the adoption with the intent of getting yearlings and adopting yearlings, and just because of what I had. And there's a series of pens here with gates that connect them, which makes it really nice for when you're doing husbandry procedures like cleaning their stall. You can feed them in one pen, wait for them to move in there, shut the gate, clean the pen. So I went to an adoption in Lexington, Virginia in October of 2018, so about 6 months ago. And this here is the loadout at that adoption. I'm using borrowed truck, borrowed trailer. I don't have my own stuff, maybe one day. But I just want to point out here, you can kind of see that's Max, the gelding's ears, and you can't really see, Red's in there, you can't really see her very well, but I wanted to point out this flag there. So I went, and you go to these adoptions and you kind of get what you get, whatever's there. You can look at the shipping manifest beforehand, but sometimes it's hard to tell which shipping manifest is for what, and they'll have, anyway. I arrived, and it turned, so all of the yearlings that were there were sales eligible, so they had all been to at least 3 adoptions. And they were all born in holding facilities, which I thought, okay, good, they're not going to run through my fences. But they've also probably, they didn't have the benefit of growing up in the social structure that some of the wild ones would have, and they've been living their whole lives in these holding facilities. So whether that's good or better, I don't know. But I picked Red, the mare, and Max, the gelding. They're long yearlings. They're about 1.5 years. They're when I adopted or purchased them. Excuse me. Their birth dates are both the same, listed as April Fools in 2017. But Max is from a holding facility in Utah, and Red is from a holding facility in Nevada. I picked Red because she stuck her nose through the bars into my friend's handbag And I was like, I can work with that. We got this. you couldn't pet her, but she was like, what's in that bag? And then I picked Max because he seemed timid, and I felt a little sorry for him. But he seemed like he would stand next to Red and be up near the fence, but he was quick to move away, and he just looked a whole lot more like the classic Mustang type. Anyway, so they loaded them up. They sorted out Max first, got him into this box. I said, do not cut the tags off. Do not put halters on. I'm going to do that. They got very nervous about this, and they kept saying over and over again to me, you've got to take these tags off. You know, they've got to come off soon. You know, and I kept saying, yes, I got it.
What are the neck tags?
It's just like, yeah, they're identified. You can't really see them in any of these pictures. I should have brought them. I still have them. But it's just like a little rope that goes around their neck with a number, and it's so that they.
But it's just like a rope.
Yeah, it's just a little rope. You can cut it with a knife or something.
What's the concern with having it removed quickly?
Pardon?
What's the concern with having it removed quickly?
You know, they're growing. It could get caught on stuff, like your feet or anything. You know, it's not good. Yeah, safety. So they sorted out Max first, got him into this little box, and then went back for Red, and he completely flipped out. It's hard to tell here, but this front part of the chute is made of like 2x4 slats, and he totally got very scared inside that box, reared up, kicked the top rail out, and fell on the ground in front of it, and got his legs hung up over it. And I was standing as far away as possible because I don't want to be associated with that. You know, they eventually got him down off that and got Red in, and then got them on the trailer. And we came home, and this is them. You know, here in the pen, they're pretty timid. They're not, you know, they're not going to approach at this point in time. So this is day one. So my first goal was that neck tag and getting them to approach. So I started doing just what they were used to at the adoptions, which is, you know, feeding them hay on the other side of the gate. And they're already used to that. They were totally fine with that, you know, after they settled in initially. And so then I, you know, stepped it up a little bit, and I actually just held a flake of hay through the bars of the gate, and they would approach and eat. And I said, from the beginning, I'd come out with my hay, stick it through the bars, and I would say, "Come here," which is what I use for recall. And I just, you know, so I'm already shaping that recall to get them to come eat. And then slowly, Red always would let me do things first compared to Max. Max is always behind Red and everything, and really needed Red to be near him in the beginning to have the confidence to approach me. You know, so I, like on the third day, I also carried little sewing scissors in my pocket. So as I'm working on touching their head and, you know, working on petting them while I'm feeding them through the bars, I had that scissors. So when I was like, oh, I could do this with Red, I just, you know, petted her, worked my hand up to buy that neck tag and cut it off. And she didn't even notice. And the same thing happened with Max, only it was just several days later. Okay, so then the next step is, this is what I came up for haltering. I had these hanging feeders just in the barn, you know, and so I started feeding them some grain out of it, because I didn't know if they'd had grain before, I didn't know. So I started feeding them this grain, and then I was like, hey, I can just put the halter in there, and then they'd have to reach their nose through this halter to get the grain. And then also, because I have a tendency to like fumble with things and drop things, because I'd already planned I wanted them to like target on the halter to use that to halter this, but I was like, how am I gonna like hold the halter open and give them a treat, and like I don't have free hands, what am I gonna do? And so this ended up being my halter holder. You know, which you can buy these, they come in sets of 2 at Tractor Supply for pretty cheap. And this is how I ended up haltering them. Again, Red, this is Max, you know, showing us, but Red was the one that was much more bold, and I could, you know, pick up that halter and buckle it behind her ears long before I could with Max. And then I want to point out, because it's not clear further on in my presentation, for about the first 30 days of working with them, even when I kind of graduated to being in the pen with them, I still put the halters on them this way, because that's a pretty vulnerable time in working with the horse. You're kind of reaching over them, they're right next to you, especially when you're working with two at the same time. While you're haltering one, you know, especially Red is very nudgy, and you'll see that later, but you know, while you're haltering one, that leaves you really vulnerable to the other one coming up and nibbling on you, basically. So I still did this, and I did start also at this, after they were pretty good at this, I could attach a lead rope and do that whole here through the bars with a little bit of lead rope pressure to work on them learning how to lead. So, you know, and then I, over time, graduated to allowing direct or free contact with these guys, mostly like as kind of punctuation in my husbandry procedures. So I would always move them to another pen while I was cleaning the one that they had been in. And then maybe when I was letting them back in, I'd just kind of linger by the open gate for a little while. They would approach me, I'd let them touch me, and then I'd walk away out the other gate. Like really short. I'm never coming after them, always trying to keep them coming towards me. So then, again, I'm still putting the halters and lead ropes on using protected contact, but here I start actually using my cue with Red, and it gets a little cut off. Good. And you can see I'm crouching down, like stand up, and so I start using that with the lead rope. Eventually, you know, not slung over her back, but just using her to lead, both of them at the same time. And I can already tell you need to lower the volume a little bit. I'll do that in a little bit because it's super windy where I train, so the wind is going to blast our ears in some of these other videos. So then, you know, I think recall, not enough people have trained any old horse to recall, but I thought it was extremely important with these guys because I want them to live in a big pasture. And I don't know about you, but you know, I live in rural Southwest Virginia, and our fences are pretty good, but you know, it's wet, and things get rotten, and sometimes you don't catch it until there's an accident. So I really, really wanted, you know, before I let them out into their big pasture where they could, you know, live a happy life for a horse, I need them to come back in case they get spooked and run through a fence, in case something happens and they get out. And so this is the first day that I let them out in the big pasture, and I'm leaving their halters on too. I know it's a safety risk, but I want, in case they do get loose and, like, you know, somebody calls animal control or something, like, let's, you know, make it easy for them. This is our first day out. Come here! Come! They're still a little wary at this point. So, you know, again, these guys, you know, I want them eventually to be ridden horses. I'm not in like a super big hurry because they're pretty young. But I wanted to introduce all of the normal stuff that you do with horses, like the saddles and being tied and all that. this is before I got good with the tripod and making videos, so I just have pictures. But at this point, I introduced them to the saddle and the saddle pad just by leaving it on the ground and letting them into the pen and letting them check it out. They're very curious. They're young horses, so it's capitalizing on that curiosity. And then using the saddle and the saddle pad as a target for them to touch and be rewarded. And then it's a little hard to see in this photo. You'll see it in some videos later. I'm using something called a running tie with Max, where it's a fancy way of describing. I'm just looping a lead rope around a vertical post so that I can train him to give to pressure. So it ends up being combined reinforcement, but applying a little bit of pressure on that lead rope. He takes a step towards the tie rail. I praise him and I give him a treat. And I find, I've worked with so many horses that have issues with the tie rail, that taking the time to really set them up before you ever tie them to anything where they can get into trouble, doing work like that. So when they feel that pressure on their face and they can't get away, their first reaction is to then step forward instead of continuing to pull back. And then previously when I had trained horses, I did stuff with them walking over a tarp, but it was always negative reinforcement and all this stuff. So I decided to take a completely different approach and not even have halters on them, nothing, and just see what happens. So they're very curious. They want to follow everything and investigate everything. And moving away from them, really engages that kind of curious, alert sense that they have, that response where they're going to kind of investigate. And then, first step, get them walking across the tarp, not even like making them do it. They just, did it on their own accord. Okay. So, at some point, I noticed that Red has a swollen leg. It just wasn't, her right front fetlock, it was a little swollen and effusive, and it just wasn't going down. I kept, I gave her some butte, nothing happened. She never was lame on it, but I, kept watching it, getting more and more nervous, like, does she have a developmental orthopedic disease? Does she have an OCD lesion in there? Like, what's happening? I'm going to need some x-rays or else I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. So I realized she's not ready to get x-rays done without sedation, so I need to set her up for success with a jugular stick. And I've got a video later, so we'll talk more about it as we go on. But I had seen somebody else using target training for jugular sticks with horses, and I had seen all these awesome videos on YouTube in zoo animals, how they did it. So I just got a jolly ball and taught her to target on it, and she decided that she was going to bite it. That's her choice. So she'd bite the jolly ball, and I'd hold off her mane. And we worked a lot on positioning for that, so that I could get some X-rays done, which she performed smashingly for the vet. The vet was very nervous. I'm a vet, but I don't have an X-ray generator and all that stuff, so I had to call somebody else to do that. And the vet was, she's ready for like a rodeo. I had talked to her on the phone beforehand. I'm like, look, I think it's going to be fine, but you got to know these guys have not been handled that much. You don't know how they're going to react and whatnot. And Red was a superstar. She let her manipulate her leg, and I had been working on, picking up the leg as well. She let her manipulate the leg. I totally forgot about this part. I had never trotted her in hand before this, and was like, oh crap, when the vet shows up. So I had to really quick teach her to trot in hand so she could do a lameness evaluation on her. But anyway, she performed great. I just hung the target up near the vet truck, had her target, and had the vet, access her jugular vein. The vet was like, that was easier than some of my other patients that are, not Mustangs. And it was great. I was really proud of her. But something else happened during this is Max, I thought I had him plenty distracted. I had given him some alfalfa pillows with water, and he was really happy. I had practiced separating the two in this manner, because I knew this was going to happen. But it just took longer than what I anticipated, and we ended up moving from the middle of the ring up near the vet truck. And when we did that, remember his history in the halter box. He got very worried. And he started just blasting around the pasture, and he went to try to jump this fence. He didn't do a very good job of jumping, but luckily he didn't get hurt, but he got loose. And this is right when we were doing the jugular stick on Red. And Red was, being so good and ignoring the whole thing, and then Max, does this, and me and the, vet and her assistant are watching, and I was like, don't do it, and then anyway, he got loose, and so I handed Red to the vet assistant and said, just stay here, don't move. And I went out and I called him to me, and I was standing next to the vet truck, which, he'd never seen that before. He just walked right up to me. I caught him, I brought him in to the arena, and then I'm actually holding him at the same time that this picture is being taken. I'm holding Max, who just wanted to stand next to Red. He's standing there while they're x-raying her, and I'm, holding two horses and my phone, taking pictures. It's not a safe thing to do, but, anyway. So that, I was like, go me on that recall. The vet, very happy, thought that she was going to have to call animal control, and that he was going to get in the road, and we were going to have this whole afternoon of trying to catch his horse. So then, I got better at using the video camera and all of that. So now I'm going to show you, this is with Max. He's not getting enough screen time here, but I'm going to show you, the same thing that I did with Red, but with Max.
Touch.
Oh, that's the running tide too. She's not actually.
Touch. Touch.
This is the first time.
Touch.
I just like how relaxed he looks this whole time. I'm able to. I have to admit, I've been my day job is you might but he looks like he's gonna fall asleep.
Did you touch it?
I just do it again because I don't want him to.
The cap back on and just do it a couple more times with no needle stick. Touch. Good!
What do you have in your treat pouch? What are you using in your treat pouch?
The thing that I like using for treats is it's a Blue Seal feed, Sentinel, the senior feed, because it's low in starch. I also have a little tiny fat pony that I work with a lot, and it's like it's a different kind of extruded pellet, so that it's like yeah, kind of like lima bean side, or it's not quite like a big treat, but it's not also, because I have a problem too when I was using just like a textured senior feed or something like that. It's so mushy, and the horses end up getting really mouthy because it's harder for them to prehend it into their mouth and stuff. Anyway, I'll go to the next video. So Again, I want these guys to be riding horses, and this is the first time I've ever tried to use target training and ride at the same time. I'm very awkward, but I really like it because it's like okay to be awkward, because I've never tried to engage, her fear response or any escape behavior in my training. So even when I'm fumbling and awkward, she's pretty relaxed about it. I haven't done as much of this with Max, partly because he got ringworm and I didn't want him to contaminate everything that I owned. So, he'll eventually get here, but I just read much further along with this. I use target training for leading to try to shape that distance away from me instead of what I used to do, which was, swing the lead rope at them or something like that to make them get off, get away. Just almost like just giving her something to do while I'm up there. This is my version of sacking out.
Were you cueing her for all of those punches, or was she just kind of like?
She was just doing it. Again, this is my first time, so I'm like, oh gosh, I really should have another person here. Again, and this is a big experiment for me, trying to figure out, how to actually use these tools in this situation. Because, like I said before, I was very invested in natural horsemanship style, negative reinforcement heavy. And it's hard because negative reinforcement is kind of like the language of most horse handling. So I feel like some people, positive reinforcement trainers, when they start working with horses in this way, it's like they want to eliminate all negative reinforcement. And for me, I would like that to work out well for those animals, but I keep thinking what happens when that animal ends up in somebody else's care and they're not used to using them. So I still want them to be really good at responding appropriately to negative reinforcement so that they don't get into trouble later. And so this is still pretty awkward, but now I'm trying to teach her, and I don't actually think this is the best way to do this. I think a better way to do this would be do A to B training and actually have somebody else on the ground to help some with this. I don't have anybody to work with, so this is just kind of what I came up with on my own. And this is her first ride. Me trying to teach her to go forward, and I'm a little sloppy, but I'm using my legs to try to, teach her that that's the signal for going forward. Again, it's all an experiment. So, and because I'm experimenting, I make a lot of mistakes. And I want to show you some of those mistakes too. I get nervous about showing when I do things wrong. But again, I'm kind of new at this compared to a lot of other people I know. And so the first, you'll see me making mistakes with Red, and then I'm going to show you some mistakes with Max. Red is just an inherently much more mouthy horse, explores her environment with her mouth. I've noticed her, interacting with other horses in the pasture. She does a lot of leg biting of the other horses and pushing them around with her mouth. And I'm trying so hard in all my training with her to just ignore this, because previously I had been taught, growing up, learning horse riding stuff in riding schools and everything. If a horse bites you, that's when you pop them, and I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to figure out ways to, stop this behavior. And I know I'm sure you guys will all see what I'm doing wrong in this, but I'll keep it a secret and you can watch. I'm telling the camera, the wind is so bad I won't subject you to that, but I am not praising her when she was not biting me. And that is, I'm like, what was I doing? You know, and then she just kind of gets frustrated and comes back across at me, and then I'm like fumbling around, and then she's going to walk right in. That's also my first time with the tripod. So this is me after I'm kind of like, okay, let's get serious about this. And I've graduated to no target. It's really windy like every day where I am. So yay! All right, and so then my next video is trailer loading with Matt. And he hits his head there, and I'm like, ah!
Yeah.
But I've set him up for failure. There's a center divider in that trailer that I had, again, not my trailer, I'm making you do with what I've got. That center divider was there, and I had spent so long trying to take that center divider out, and I could not get it out. And then he was doing so well, loading on the trailer, hits his head, and I was like, I'm done. So I went back to struggling with that center divider, and I finally got it out, and then went back. But then he needs a lot more reassurance now because he had a bad experience with it all before. So I think trailer loading. A lot of people get pressured for time, and things escalate pretty quickly in trailer loading. I want everybody to just stop and relax every time they're having a problem loading, because if you do, you can accomplish great things. I was really excited. Okay. So then I'm into non-confrontational horse handling, and I'm a vet, so I really care about how these animals act around the vet. And one of my pet peeves is when you have to be sneaky to deworm a horse. I just hate that. I think when you're trying to be sneaky, you end up accidentally getting that applicator tip in the roof of their mouth, which can be very painful and can make the behavior worse. To try to show you, how good this works, I'm only giving her a little bit of the dewormer paste at a time instead of all at once too, just to demonstrate that you don't have to, get in there and shove it all in all at once. You can go slow and still have success. And again, I'm pointing it down when it gets in there, so it's pressing against her tongue instead of her mouth. And then, then I, thought back to that whole distal lymph radiography, and I was like, okay, could I do this without sedation this time? I think I could. She's not quite ready for standing up on the blocks. I was going to try to do that without sedation, but it was turning into too rushed of a thing, so I settled for what she had done before, but she didn't stand up on the block before, which is just, this is my piece of wood as my x-ray plate and my little cooler with some cardboard on it as my mock x-ray generator, just to demonstrate, I tell her, whoa, and I just want her to keep her feet all in the same location. She does kind of come over and wiggle. But yeah, so that's just like some of what's possible with these techniques, and I hope you see that and you feel inspired, especially if you mostly work with dogs. You can use the same techniques with horses. You need to be careful because they're large animals, and knock you down if you're not careful. But anyway, this is just a fun video. Max didn't get enough screen time there, and you can, this is just fun stuff showing that I do, at liberty training, doing the clean air use scratches instead of treats. Some horses like scratches more than treats. Red's kind of just some resource guarding and gets very much like, if you're doing something with math, you must and this is, I'm just trying to show that I'm holding the, my scary cards and still calling them to me, and they're obviously not scared of the card. And then, this is really cool. This is the first time I got the ball out. The ball's kind of dirty, but. And these are some of the videos that I try to post on social media and stuff, like I was saying, really want to share with people. So I try to post as many things as I can on social media. I have a YouTube channel, so that people can see, what's possible. How old is your baby? They were a year and a half, 18 months when I got them. They just had their second birthday on the first day of April. Anyway, do you have any questions?
Did they play a prank on you?
With how old they are? The word they did, I didn't notice.
Didn't sound like you were actually clicking them, so you just doing the good or yay or
Yeah, I say good every time because again I just like get awkward and fumbly with my hands, and having to have something in my hands, I just make too many mistakes. And I tried doing but I can't do it every time. So I ended up just going for good. Trying to make it that high-pitched kind of sing-song thing that I wouldn't just normally talk like that, so it would be unique.
I do it.
Yeah,
So I can be really consistent.
that's awesome. I just my mouth.
I always like doing all horse people. I can't make that noise either, and I always feel like all horse people just like come being able to. And I'm like, I didn't get that installed.
We're horse person.
I know. I was like, well, I have to stop this. Because I can't like that.
No, I know, it's significantly different from that.
Yeah,
I can't do that one either.
and that's something where I feel like if I use my voice like that, instead of using like sounds like that, I train them for I use walk on to be a motivated fast walk, walk to be slow walk like this, and then same with trotting. Trot is a energetic trot, and then trot is the slower trot, to try to differentiate. So if I'm trying to get them to speed up, I'll use the trot or walk on, instead of those sounds, because I feel like some people they use that sound to mean one thing, and then somebody else uses that sound to mean something else. And so sure, if you're if you're only ever going to have one handler, that's great, but I just from what I know of horses and horses getting sold and stuff. Yeah.
What are your eventual goals? Have you reached your eventual?
That's a really good question. So, in the beginning, I thought, okay, I'm going to make Judas horses that I could I'm serious. Like I think in these terms, like could I, release these horses and have them lead lead some feral horses into a trap? Like I fantasize about using them for something like that. But mostly my goal was just to show off what they can do, and that, hopefully get other people to want to do something similar, because the Bureau of Land Management has got this problem of all these horses, and you know, I'm pretty sure they're gonna start rounding up a lot of them, and you're gonna have thousands and thousands of horses coming into holding facilities, and what is going to happen to them? You know, I don't know, and I know there's a lot of different options on the table being considered. You know, euthanasia has been presented for these horses, and they're really at a budget crisis. So just trying to show people that there's another option for how to train them is a big part of what I'm doing. Because if you go to adoptions, a lot of times there's a training, there's somebody there who's like doing a training demo, and I've had to leave with those, you know, just because I can't handle watching it. So showing, you know, again, you know, trying to put them on social media. I probably could do a better job of that. I got a lot more videos than I need to start, you know, putting out there. But yeah, just get them some publicity. Yeah, thank you.
What is your social media contact? YouTube
I just,
channel?
right now, I am, I just on Facebook, I'm embarrassed, but I'm not very good at Instagram. And then I have a YouTube channel. It's not unique enough, and I need to change the name of it because people are having a hard time finding it. It's just, I think it's Sarah Lowe DDM, and it's not. It's just like gets lost, and there's so many different people with my name, Sarah Lowe. So I got to work on that. I do have a website that I'm working. You know, again, this is all process. I'm not, you know, some social media master by any means. And so my website, it needs some work, but it's saralowdbm.com, and I got to get links to all of this stuff up there. And it's hard to take the time to do that and train them and work my job and all of that. So it's like one step at a time.
All right, I'm going to ask that we hold the questions because we're a little bit behind for lunch. I don't want to cut those lunches too short. So thank you, Sarah.